To this pre-recorded version of the Unit 10 seminar. We're not going to play any music for this one because we're jumping straight into the material. And we'll begin by reviewing Unit 9. In Unit 9, we discussed how a monopoly's marginal revenue is always less than its price. Okay? And we saw how that would look graphically when we computed that marginal revenue. Remember, it was only $3, okay, when the price was $8. And we saw that there were two reasons for that. One was the price effect, and the price effect was the change in total revenue caused by the existing customers now paying the new price. And then we saw that there was a quantity effect, and the quantity effect was the result of new customers coming into the market because the price was lowered and the amount of revenue that those new clients or customers brought in. So when we added the two together, we had the minus 100 plus the 160. That meant that our net change in revenue was only $60 in the example. And when we computed our marginal revenue, we saw it was only $3 when the price was $8. Okay, then we looked at the monopoly and how it creates monopoly profits because there are no competitors. And we looked at the fact that they want to produce, the monopoly wants to produce where its marginal cost is equal to its marginal revenue, okay, at that quantity. But it wants to charge the maximum price that it can, okay? And when it produces at that level, then it's because its price is so much above what its average total cost is for producing that quantity that we end up with excessive profit. And remember, we said that when we compute that average total cost, that it actually includes a fair return to capital. In other words, a fair return to the investors. Okay? So we saw that if we compare how a monopoly operates with how the same market would be in a perfectly competitive market, that we would see that there would be less produced in the monopoly and the price would be significantly higher. Because there's less being produced, we have that triangular area that you see on the slide that is marked as dead weight loss. That is the amount not produced because this is a monopoly that would have been produced if this were a perfectly competitive market. Okay, and then we went on and looked at how that dead weight loss compares. Okay, then the question becomes what kind of regulation, if you will, can the government institute to control monopolies? And the idea is the government's going to want to force the monopoly to a lower revenue, okay, a lower price, and a higher production level. Okay? And it can do that as long as the price it charges is equal to the marginal cost. If it sets a price ceiling that is below marginal cost, then the monopoly is not going to stay in business. Okay? And it's going to have a loss. But if the government sets its price ceiling equal to the average total cost, then the monopoly will make a fair return on its capital. It will not have excessive profits and will be producing at a quantity that the marketplace wants. Okay? So that's the idea behind an ideal situation for regulation of monopolies. Okay. If you have any questions on that, be sure to let me know. What we're going to talk about today is oligopolistic markets, and then we'll talk a smidgen about monopolistically competitive markets. Okay, well, remember, we've talked a lot about perfect competition, where there are many, many suppliers and many, many buyers, and they're all dealing with the exact same product. And then remember that the suppliers are price takers, and they are stuck with the equilibrium price of the marketplace. Then we took a look at the monopoly, and we saw as a single supplier, the monopoly has the entire demand curve. And depending on whether or not there's any regulations, the monopoly is going to move toward having monopoly profits. Okay? So what is an oligopoly? Well, remember, monopoly was a single supplier. An oligopoly is an industry where there's very few producers. So, and they could get together and chit chat and decide on a price. Okay? And so we'll look at that. Now, before we go into it any further, how can we determine if there is an oligopoly? Well, a couple of economists, Herfindahl and Hirschman, came up with what they call their index, the HHI index. And basically, it's a computation where we look at the sum, or we add together the square of the market share for each firm in the industry. Now, what in the world is he talking about? Well, let's use an example from several years ago, matter of fact, 20 years ago for that matter. And we're going to look at the market share for these light beers. Okay, and we notice we had 10 light beers that were produced back then. And you see the numbers in the right-hand column. That's the percentage market share that each one of those beers had. So Bud Light was the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It had over 36, almost 37% of the market. But Miller Genuine Draft only had 7/10 of the market. So we see roughly what the distribution is. So we would think that's a highly competitive market, okay, because we got 10 producers there. But if we look at the breweries that actually produce those beers, we see that back then, Anheuser-Busch produced 4 of those beers, and those 4 together made up 55%, a little over that, of the market. And Miller's Coors Light, LLC, had another 4, and no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, another 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. Anyhow, and so that meant that it had another 43%, and then we had one lone one. I must have counted wrong because I guess the Miller's Coors Light only had, anyhow. And then there's one left, Old Milwaukee. Okay? So yeah, my Bud Light only had 4. I can't count. Grr. Okay, so you see, we actually had 3 producers. And if we take their percentage of market share, okay, and we square the number and then add them together. So we take the 55.4 and multiply it times itself. We take the 43.2 and multiply it times itself and add that to the original number. And then we take the 8/10 and multiply it by itself and add it in. And we add up all that answer and we come up with 4,936. Now remember, our criteria for whether this industry was an oligopoly was, is that answer bigger than 1,800? Well, obviously it is. It's way more than double. Okay, so that business is oligopolistic because there are only 3, really 2 major producers and one, kind of cursory on the side producer. Okay, so you get the idea. That's definitely a monopoly. So or oligopoly, I'm sorry, oligopoly because there's only a few producers. So how do they set their prices? Well, we're going to use a little different example, not beers, but we're going to assume that that there's a place with a bay, very similar to where I live, the Sarasota Bay, or Tampa Bay, actually, I live in Sarasota, and that there's a water taxi that will take tourists out to one of the islands. And there's actually 2 companies. There's your water taxi and there's their water taxi. Now they're exactly the same. There is no difference in the service. There is no difference in the time. There is no difference in the quality. Everything is the same. The only thing that's going to determine how many customers somebody gets is the price. Okay? So what we're going to do is explore this as a pricing problem. Now we're going to start off in a very simplified model we're going to assume there's only two options for price, a high price or a low price. Okay? And in the yellow, you can charge a high price or you can charge a low price. In the green, they can charge a low price or they can charge a high price. So we want to see what happens in each of these situations. To make it simple, we're going to plug some numbers in. We're going to say if both of you and your competitor, both charge the low price, whatever it is, you're going to split the business. So you're going to get half of the customers and they're going to get half of the customers. And that means that in this case, you'll each make $20 a profit. You could add as many zeros in there as you want, figure out the time or whatever. But for simplicity's sake, we're going to use easy numbers. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. What happens if you charge the high price and they charge the low price? Well, what's going to happen is all of the customers are going to go to them because they are charging the low price. Because remember, price is the only decision factor for the customer. So they're all going to go to your competitor. You're going to get nada, okay? Nothing. So what happens if you go low and they go high? Well, again, all the customers are very price sensitive. They're going to come to you because you have the low price. The competitor is going to have nothing, no business at all. Okay, let's go another step. What happens if you charge the high price and they charge the high price? Well, in this case, you're going to split the business again, okay, right down the middle. You're going to get half of the business. They're going to get half the business. But you're each going to get much higher profit level because of you each charging the high price. And your customers only have the choice of you two. There are no other options for getting to that island unless they have their own boat, and not all the tourists do. So you see how we can split the numbers, okay? So a white screen means we're going to shift gears just a little bit, but we're going to use that same kind of example. Okay, and again, this is going to parallel very, very closely with half of the exam questions that you have in the Unit 10 exam, okay? Which, remember, the Unit 10 exam only covers Units 9 and 10. Okay, so the question becomes, if you only have one chance of deciding what price to set, and you don't know what they're going to do, and they don't know what you're going to do, what is your safest choice? Should you go low or should you go high? Well, let's look at this. If you go high and they go high, then you stand a chance of getting half of the business and you're going to make 50 and they're going to make 50. That'll be a good deal, right? Good size profit. But if you go high and they go low, you're going to get nothing and they're going to get 100. So that's really not too good, okay? What in effect happens is you've got a 50-50% chance, if you go high, of making a really good profit, $50, or making nothing. Okay, hold that thought. What happens if you go low? Okay, well, if you go low and they go low, you're both going to split a low number, but you're going to get $20 profit. But if you go low and they go high, you're going to get all of it, 100, and they're going to get nothing. So you have a 50-50% chance, if you go low, of making 20 or a 50% chance of making 100. Okay? So wouldn't you say that that's better than a 50% chance of making 100 and a 50% chance of making nothing? I'm sorry, a 50% chance of making 50 and a 50% chance of making nothing. So we have a special name for this. It's called the Nash Non-Cooperative Equilibrium Pricing Strategy. Now, Nash is an economist who kind of created this idea, okay, and published it. And so we attribute that name to it. So if you had a question indicating something about the Nash Non-Cooperative Equilibrium Pricing Strategy, well, you'd have an idea what that means, okay? That means your best shot is going low because you have a 50% chance of 20 and a 50% chance of 100. Okay, moving on, you would probably have something akin to this image. And so when it comes time to do your quiz, you might find it helpful to have these slides on half of your screen. Not saying they have the answer, but it would help you remember how to do this. So there are 5 choices in the answer area, but in looking at the chart, okay, we try to figure out and look at the box in the lower right. Do they charge high or do they charge low? Do you charge high or do you charge low? Okay, so you get the idea. Okay, in the case that we just looked at, if there's only a single period in which to choose and you do not know what they're going to do, you always want to choose the Nash non-cooperative equilibrium pricing strategy. And if you look in the box in the lower right, you see that you go low each time, regardless of whether they go low or they go high. Okay? Now, that's when you only have a single period to make the decision in. Okay? So you win if you go low, and that's called a Nash non-cooperative equilibrium pricing strategy. Okay, black screen, we're going to shift gears a little bit. Okay, same general idea, but we're going to look at something different. Okay, so you've taken this course and you understand that it would really, really be nice if you could charge the high price and they could charge the high price, because then you're going to split the business with a really good profit. Okay, so imagine that you know who your competitor is, and maybe you play golf, or maybe you run into them in a restaurant somewhere, or you run into them in a bar, or you run into them going bowling or something. But you run into them somewhere, and you kind of get off to the side and you chit-chat a little bit. You say, hey, you know what? I took this economics course, and I know if we both charge the high price, we could make some good money. And your buddy says, you know what? That's a good idea. I like that. There's a little problem with that, though. We call that overt collusion. And if the government finds out you did that, they're going to put you in jail. Okay? That's a bad thing in business. Okay? So if there is any proof of collusion, literally it's breaking the law. So we don't want to be doing that. Okay? Now, that in mind, understand that you're taking this course and you know if both of you could charge the high price, that'd be a good thing. Right? And guess what? Your competitor is taking the course in AB 20224, Section 03. And they're learning the same thing. Oh, interesting. Okay, let's go a little further. Okay, let's now see that we have 2 time periods in which we can set prices. Okay, so we can set prices and see what our competitors doing and set prices again. So what's going to happen to those profits? Okay, so let's start off and say that you're always going to go low and they are always going to go low. Okay, that's very much like the first example. So we see the first period, both of you go low, you split the profits 20-20, okay? And if we have that chart again, the one on the right, we see that in the first period, you go low, and the first period, they go low. And you see the first period, you get 20 of profit, they get 20 of profit. Okay, what happens in the second period? Well, we said in every period, you go low. And in every period, they go low. So in the second period, they're going to go low. You're going to go low. And if we complete the chart, we now see in the second period, you guys each do the same thing. And now there's a total profit for 2 periods of $40 each. Okay? Now, if you had a chart that looks like the one in the lower right, okay, with in the first period, you're going low, or the one party's going low. In the second period, or this first period, the other party's going low. In the second period, both parties go low again. And you have these same 5 choices, okay, for your answers. Well, it would look an awful lot like the one party's always going low and the other party's always going low. That would be the answer. Okay. Black screen. Shifting gears one more time. Okay. Tit for tat versus cheating. Well, in its simplest form, tit for tat is doing what the other guy did first. Okay. Cheating is backing up a minute and think. Okay. What did you just learn about setting prices? If you could go high and they could go high, you could make big bucks. And remember, they're taking the same course. They know that too. So, if you go high and they go high, you're going to split the business, right? And you're going to make good profits. Guess what cheating is? Cheating is knowing that going high would be the best bet, but going low so you can get all the profit, 100% of it, and they get nothing. That's cheating. Okay? Tit for tat is doing what the other guy did last time. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so we know what cheating is. Cheating is going low when we really think going high would be the better deal. Okay. So tit for tat's doing what the other party did last time. So if he charged low last time, you would charge low the next time. If he had charged high last time, you would charge high the next time. Okay, so we know what tit for tat and cheating is. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so in this example, you're always going to play tit for tat. They are always going to charge the low price. In other words, they're going to cheat. Okay, so in the first period, you're going high because you know that's the good thing to do. And you're hoping they're going to do it too. But they cheat. They go low, which means you get nothing. They get everything. Okay, so that's the first period where you've gone high and they've gone low. Okay, in the second period, you're going to do what they did last time, but they're still going to go low because they always go low. Okay, we see our new chart where in the first period you got nada, nothing. They got 100. In the second period, you got 20 and they got 20. Okay, so they kind of win on that. Okay, so if we had a chart that looked like the one in the lower right, which answer would be right? Well, again, that looks an awful lot like you went high. And then you did what they did last time. Okay? And they went low both times. So it looks like you were playing tit for tat and they were charging the low price. Okay. What happens if they're the ones playing tit for tat and you always go low or cheat? Well, it's going to be the exact opposite. You're going to make the $100 the first time. They're going to make nothing because you went low and they went high. In the second period, they're going to do what you did last time. Okay? And so they're going to go low because you went low last time. Okay? I just did that backwards. Yeah. And you always go low, so you're going to go low this time. Okay? So basically, you get the 120, they only get 20. So once again, if we look at those list of possible answers, we see that they are always playing tit for tat, not you, and you always go low if your chart looks like the one on the lower right. Now, the final one, what happens if you always play tit for tat and they always play tit for tat? Well, we know that tit for tat is not cheating. It's going high. Okay? And then the next time doing what they did last time. And they're going to go high the first time. And the second time, they're going to do what you did last time. So let's look at this. In the first period, you both go high. You split the business, you get 50-50. Okay? In the second period, because they went high, you're going to do what they did last time. You're going to go high. And you're going to do what they did last time. Okay? Or they're going to do what you did last time. So last time you went high, so they're going to go high this time. So you both go high again. Okay? And you split the business again, and you both make the big bucks. Okay? So notice how it looks very much like maybe you cheated and got together and talked about it, but you didn't. You made reasonable management decisions, okay, based on professional learning. Okay? So we call that tacit collusion. It's not against the law. It just looks like it's collusion, but it isn't. Okay? Because you never got together and agreed to what the price should be. So how many times have you gone by gas stations and you see the prices are identical? Okay? Because they're opposite corners. Same kind of thing. Okay? Okay. So how would we answer that one? So again, if we have the block on the lower right with the numbers, and we look at what our choices of answers are, and that's nothing we have to worry about. Okay, so we see that the choice for that is you always play tit for tat, and they always play tit for tat. Okay, now in your assignment or your exam, it's not going to be you and them. It's going to be two different players, if you will. So you'll have to insert the proper name. But I want you to see it in a more personal way so you maybe get a better grasp of it. Okay, if you have any questions on that, be sure to get a hold of me. Now, I wanted to spend just a couple minutes talking about monopolistically competitive markets. Okay? What is this? Well, a competitive market is one there's very many customers. By the way, there's good news and bad news about this. The good news is it's relatively easy to learn. The bad news is, well, no, let's back up a minute. The bad news is it's relatively easy to learn. The good news is there's no questions on the assignment about it. So maybe that'll help a little bit. But I wanted you to understand a little bit about what monopolistically competitive is. So again, it's an industry where because it's competitive, there are many producers who sell a differentiated product. What do we mean by a differentiated product? Okay, it's probably very similar product, but you try to make your customers think it's special. Special enough that they will stay with you as the producer, kind of like you're a monopoly. That's the objective. Okay? So, for example, I'm sure you know some people who would stay with one gasoline seller over another. There are some people who won't go near Exxon, they'll only use Shell. And likewise, some would only go use Exxon and never use Shell. And yet there are all those other gasoline producers. By the way, has anyone here, again, I can't see your answers, but think about this for a minute. Have you ever been near a pipeline where the gasoline is moved across the country and provided locally when the places that make the gasoline, take oil and make it into gasoline, are along the Gulf Coast, and now they ship the gas by pipeline? Well, if you were ever near one of those pipelines, okay, on any given morning, you would see all these gasoline trucks lined up to pick up their gas. And some days the Shell would be up front, and some days the Exxon would be up front, and some days the other one would be up front, and some days the no-name one would be up front. Guess what? The gasoline coming out of that pipeline is exactly the same. Some days that gas goes into the Shell truck first and into the Exxon truck later. Some days it goes into the Exxon truck first. Some days, in the Shell a little later. There is no difference. So how do they advertise difference? What makes their gases different? Oh, when I get the gas in the truck to the gas station and I go to pump it into that giant underground tank, I can go dump a quart or a pint or whatever of an additive that's going to make that gas special. So it's going to burn extra clean in your engine. Ta-da! And I can charge extra for that. Okay. And if I can get you hooked onto my credit card, then you're always going to get gas from my station because my credit card won't work in the other station. Duh. So my gasoline is better than your gasoline. You better stay with, the other guy's gasoline. You better stay with me. That's the idea of a monopolist, of trying to take a competitive market and make it very monopolistic. It's kind of like who's got the beef? In other words, which burger's better? Okay. Should you stay always and you want to go get a quick burger, do you always go to the same place? Why? Do they advertise that their burgers are better? Maybe. Okay. So that's all monopolistically competitive markets are. That's where we try to convince the customers that our product and our service is so special, even though it's identical to everybody else's, that they should pay extra for it. Think of cars, okay? You could drive a Chevy or a Ford, or you could drive a Mercedes or a BMW or something else equally fancy. Okay? They're both going to do the speed limit down the Autobahn. Any faster than that, you're going to get pulled over. Yeah, they're both going to be fairly comfortable. They're both going to have air conditioning. They're both going to have a radio, all the things you need. But you're going to pay an awful lot more for that Mercedes. Is it that special? Well, they sure made us think it is. Something to think about. Okay, so you've got chapters 14 and 15 to read this week. You want to make sure you do any learning activities. Again, you have a multiple choice quiz in place of an assignment this week. And 5 of the questions on the quiz, it's a 10-question quiz, although they have random questions. Half of the questions are from Unit 10, the things we just covered. The other half are from Unit 9, things we covered last week. So if you have any questions, be sure to get a hold of me. And with that, there is a certain amount of sadness because this is our last seminar. So over this 10 weeks, I've gotten to know each of you through your discussion threads, through your assignments, and through whatever interactions we've had if you've emailed me or we've talked on the phone. Okay? So there is a certain sadness that the term is coming to an end. Okay? You know how to contact me. I'm here for you if you need me, even after the course is over with. So keep my contact information. And I want to congratulate you because learning economics, like we say in the first week, it's like learning a new language. And you have been successful. You're moving toward your educational goal. And so I want to thank you and congratulate you and tell you that it's been my privilege that you've let me be your guide and your companion on this adventure, let's say, in studying economics. Thank you for letting me join you. And with that, the seminar is over. Thank you.